Awesome. I love that we have the 8 is in transit, and actually we're moving into all the throat gates for the transit. So the sun's going to be activating a lot of throat gates these next coming weeks. We're going to go through almost all the throat gates starting now. Actually, starting with the 23, the last transit, I believe, is when we hit a throat gate. So, ooh, lots activated in these throats. Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Okay, let me pull up our video. This is our sixth time. We've already done 6 hubs. It's wild. Okay. Oh, we're live. Oh my God. We're going to get started now. Okay, hello and welcome to Thrive by Design. We're so glad that you're here. This has been an ongoing series for us. Today, we are opening the 6th hub. And when we talk about hubs, we're talking about the human design body graph. And we've already been through the lower section. We're up to the throat today. So this is all about expression and manifestation. And I'm thrilled to be here and to be able to chat about the archetypes that live in this hub. And I don't know, I'm just so grateful to be doing this. I feel like we've gotten our swing. We have our things that we do. This is part of a series that we do inside the inner circle as well. So today we unlock it, we unveil it. And then next week, we spend a whole week with the inner circle diving into it. So we usually have an embodiment webinar where we're bringing in and including the body. And then we have a teaching, and then we do chart readings, and we have discussions and things throughout. We used to do it a whole month in the inner circle. Then we realized it's way more potent, impactful, and the presence is there when you shorten it, because everybody has lives. We're not living in the same commune together where we're all talking about the throat hub every day, all day. No, that's not what happened. So we shortened it, and it's a beautiful flow now. Yeah. Would you like to speak, Bella, with your defined throat? The open throat is the one that's starting.
Well, if you're on Facebook still, go to our page, Unlock Your Design, and make sure that you are inside in the webinar with us, or maybe we can even post the link, but at least be inside, because we're going to do some surprises, and there can also be questions at the end that you need to be inside of the webinar. So always when we do something, to be as close to us as possible in the energy is really cool. We are quite a lot of people here today. So if you're on Facebook, make sure you come inside the webinar. And if you sign up for one of the hubs, there are 9, and Ashley said this is a 6th one, you are always going to have that link. It's the same. So every time we do a hub exploration or we open a hub, it's free for everyone, and then you can come and learn about those 9 centers. This is the same thing as in human design when we speak about living your design. That's learning. That's one of the basic courses. when you become a guide, you learn about all the centers, the self and the not self, because when you know what's defined in you, you can live your design, you can follow your strategy and authority by knowing what your inner authority is, what's defined and consistent, and what's open and inconsistent. So this is the journey that we're doing, but we are bringing in two things. We're bringing in the gene key frequency band. So it's not just self, not self. It's also this band that we all are like always a human kind of surfing on, we could say, from the shadow to the gift to the city. And the second thing is that we're bringing our archetypes. So when we open the hub every month, the first time used to be more about the archetypes. We kind of get swayed away and we kind of give you everything, but really why we're here is to look at those archetypes, because when we speak about archetypes in our sense, it's like we have created those beings that are a combination of astrology, human design, gene keys, and the I Ching. So in one archetype, for example, the 8 that Ashley was mentioning, we're going to have a personified being, you could say, an archetype that is going to regroup all these systems, bridging the gap between the systems into one of them. And what I felt today that we are going to do is to bring at least 3 archetypes in. And when we are doing the hubs, like I said, this is part of the basic certification, if you want, or the basic foundation that you want if you want to work with this. So it's important with the mechanics. So bringing in, for example, circuitry is something that we always do. So today, if we have time, I would love to bring in one archetype from the individual circuitry, one from the collective circuitry, and one from the tribal circuitry, to start to show you a little bit how important it is to know where a gene key exists in this spectrum, right? Because if you're a gene key person, you're like, oh, what does that mean? And I assure you that when you read Richard Rudd's description again of a gene key, and you know in what circuitry in the body graph it exists, it's going to make so much more sense to you. So that's a way of also showing how these systems perfectly go together, and how the understanding of human design helps you with the gene keys, how the understanding on astrology helps you when you go back then to the human design. It's all systems that go together. And when you can broaden that awareness, because this is what we do in Unlock Your Design, we are like opening our awareness so we can choose, okay, do I want to look from the lens of astrology, from the lens of the I Ching? What lens? We broaden the perspective so we can choose and see how we want to use that. And then it's also about the embodiment. And the archetypes are such an amazing way of being like, oh, that archetype, I really recognize that in my mom or in my boyfriend. Or so it's very cool to get to know the archetypes and then feel how we embody them, or somebody around us that we know are embodying them. So it's the awareness of how they feel, how it is to live with them, and also the understanding. But those two go together. Awareness and embodiment always go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. That is exactly what we do here. And we want to give you the tools to choose, because you'll resonate with human design, gene keys, astrology, whatever. And we bridge the gap between them so that as you're exploring these archetypes, you have all of the tools in front of you instead of jumping from one pond to the other pond to the other pond. It's like, here's this archetype and this is its persona. This is its personality. So you're going to see in this graphic, we have all the different archetype names. So you saw them in the intro that we made. The 62, we call the scientist. The 23, we call the translator. The 56, we call the comedian. The 35 is the heroine or hero. We made it a her. And the 12 is the prophet. The 45 is the goodwill. 33 is the medicine woman. 8 is the influencer. 31 is the president, 20 is the tranquil, and 16 is the enthusiast. And they do have a gender, but when you're looking at the bigger picture of things, there is no gender. There is no gender. This is just so that you can relate to them. So if you want to call the heroine, the hero, whatever it is. But if you are a man and you have the 35 as one of your inner archetypes, it doesn't matter if it is a man or a woman. You're not going to be like, oh, because I'm a man, it's a male. It's a male archetype. It's not. It's both. It's all. Like the Vesica Pisces you saw with the prophet archetype. It's both together. Where there was 1 and 2, now they're together formed, and gender is not a thing. So that's what wants to come out of my open throat today. Yeah. So today, I guess let me pull up our slides. Yeah, why not? We don't really have to do these, but I think I'd like to.
In the meantime, Ashley, I can just say this is one of the two centers, I believe, in the body graph where we don't have the same definition. I believe it's only the throat and the ego. So the ego I have open and you have defined, and the throat you have open with only one gate, the 16, and I have it very defined in my design. So this is interesting too, to kind of see the difference in us, because usually as sacral generators with open head and ajna, there's a lot of ways that we work similarly in, but here it's quite opposite or different, or
yeah, all these inner archetypes that you have within you. And because right now we're in the throat hub, right? If you have it defined or open, the archetypes that you have within there create a flavoring of your expression. So if it's completely open, there's not a preferred way of you to express. But if for example, you have many archetypes, they're going to come together in alchemy, and your expression is going to be represented with all of them. So if you are attuned to the archetypes, you're going to be able to hear that voice in that other person. And it's really, I mean, I think it's fascinating and it's beautiful. And as someone that has an open throat, taking in other people, I start to notice those archetypes even more so, because I'm feeling the nuances in expression. And I can tell when someone has a defined throat and when somebody doesn't. It's powerful. Expression is powerful. It's when you have what's inside you coming out through frequency, through tonality, through intonation too. It's like we each have a different voice. Nobody's voice is the same as ours either. It's very unique. So the voice is a beautiful representation of our own unique expression. No one's going to sound the same as us. No one's going to, like, we all sing our own song. And yeah, it's about finding your uniqueness. I feel like the 8 gene key is kind of influencing me a little bit right now since that's in transit. Okay. Well, all right. Pulling the slides up. I had to open from another browser because it doesn't let me share in the other one. So here we go. The unveiling of the key. Bella, this is the key. Here you go. This is the first time she's seeing it. This is the throat chakra symbol. And then I have all of these waves. Like, you know, when you're looking at an audio and you can see the things going up and down, that's kind of what is unlocking, is your expression. And here we have expression and manifestation. And like I said, brought to you by the inner circle. Let's unlock it together. Okay. So Bella, you had mentioned that you had a direction that you wanted to take, something that you wanted to bring to this unlocking. What was your idea? How do you want to do this?
Because we call them hubs. It is like these towns where the archetypes live, and we have spoken about that many times before, and they care about different things. So we are going to have archetypes. For the first archetype, we could say group, they care about their own individual expression, empowerment, their own pulse in life, we could say. And they are not so concerned about everybody else. So the 8 that is in transit right now is one of them, that is in this middle pillar of the body graph that I love to speak about, because it's life force, it's kundalini, it's this pulse that is going to mutate at some point, and we don't know. Like, that is the voice that is going to share and contribute, and sometime or in some point there is something genius that changes everything, a metamorphosis. And that is also what this throat center stands about. It's here to express and to manifest. So the 8 does that in a very unique way. It's part of this individual circuitry where it comes from its own creativity. And it can also be a surprise to itself when that thing comes out. What I like about the 8 as well is that it's the gate of contribution. So when you have an 8 on your team, you're really lucky. It's somebody who's there and who's going to take any creative endeavor. It's going to take it forward because it has that pulse in it. And Ashley and I, when we are looking at our connection chart, we have quite a lot of gates together. And when we look in a penta sense, and this can be new for some of you, but when we look at human design from a business sense, all the gates that go from the throat to the G, and then from the G to the sacral are what we call pentagates. And they have to do with how well an organization can function, and if an organization has all the different qualities that it needs to work. And one of the pentagates that Ashley and I don't have in our combined chart is the 8. And what we have noticed is that we are attracting a lot of people with the 8. The 8 is going to create a harmonic, it's a harmonic gate. It's going to create a channel with my 1, which is my personality Earth. So when we have that 1-8, there is like an agent, a voice for our creativity. Without that 8, it's like I have a lot of ideas, a lot of creativity, a lot of sparks, but there is not really like an agent necessarily bringing that out to the world through that unique individualized voice. So these are a few things that I can say about the 8. And Ashley, I would love you to come in. I know that you did a graphic for the 8, and you love the influencer, so I know that you can speak to it.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I was looking at the 8 today. I'm gonna stop screen sharing. I was looking at the 8 today, the website and the course and all the stuff that goes along with it, and I found myself like not really jiving with what I created last year, because something that came up during the transit call that we had with the inner circle and everybody that's purchased the 8 archetype course was that you're ahead of the trend. And then when it becomes trending, it's not really like fun for you anymore. It's like, okay, the wave has come and now I can go find a new thing. It's like you're always kind of creating your own style, and you're not doing it because you're copying something or it's in fashion or on trend. When it is on trend, you kind of don't like it. And rules came up during the transit too. Actually, during the transit call, we created our own diamond of the self. So I had told everybody to kind of pick through a bunch of gems that I had outlines for, and then we were going to paint them or color them during the transit call while we were chatting. So it was kind of like how you go to those painting and wine things where you're like drinking and painting. Well, this time we were talking about the 8 and painting or expressing ourselves. And we had some people that were like, I didn't do the homework and I don't want to do it. And so then they did their own thing. And this is what I created. It was a heart gem, and I outlined it, and then I started to paint it. And it was interesting, Bella, because in the beginning, I was like, I don't know about this heart. I don't know if I want this right now. And I was picking out some colors, and it was the purples and the turquoise. And I looked at the color and I'm like, I don't even like these colors. I feel like it's Bella. I feel like these jewel tones are Bella. And I'm like, I'll just paint the heart for Bella. And I was like, I like oranges and yellows. And I like Bella doesn't like orange. And I like greens and oranges and like those. So when I started to paint this, I painted those 2 colors, and I was like, okay, Bella. And then it started to morph. And then I was like, oh my God, I wasn't even planning to do all the chakras, but that's what happened. And what we arrived at was that we each are a diamond of ourselves, right? We shine uniquely. We're multifaceted. We have many archetypes within us. And at the same time, we're part of a larger gem, the collective gem, if you will. And so each of us are a facet of that gem. Each of the 64 archetypes are a facet of one complete whole archetype. Like in the Siddhic frequency, like Richard defines all the Siddhic frequencies, like universal love, presence, communion. When you get there, they're together. It's like when you get to the Siddhi, it's unity. It's universal love. There's just one. There's no more duality or separation. So when we get to that level, they're all one together. And there's no distinction. There's no differentiation. The gift is the place to be. The gift is where action comes. The gift is where uniqueness comes. The gift is where differentiation is. The gift is where you are in your exalted expression versus the shadow, where in particular for the 8, mediocrity, the 8 is like bogged down by the rules and the trends. In a way, the 8 is an individual, like Bella said, it's part of individual circuitry. It's here to pave the way for something new, to take something maybe from within them, share it with the world, and something that has never come before. The 8 likes to bridge with the 1, and the 1 is the spark. The 1 is the newness. It's never come before. So the 8 recognizes freshness. The 8 loves beauty, and it takes it, it gives it to the world, and maybe it sets fire, and everybody else is on the train of this fresh new idea or trend or whatever it is. So the 8 is beautiful in the way that it knows what is unique. It knows what is beautiful, and it's going to take it. So
in the individual circuitry, we have the knowing there. It's this thing that you just know. And when it happens for the, like I said before, it can be a surprise even for the 1, but when it happens, it always creates empowerment. So inner knowing and empowerment are keywords for this 8, and anything that you have in the middle pillar, or in the middle, if you think on the sides of the body graph as well. And that's important. And it's not here to it's not here to share with others. It's going to do that naturally. It's here to be empowered in itself. And by being empowered in itself, it's going to inspire others. And that is the true influencer. The influencer that's not all about, oh, I'm going to batch produce this many photos so I have for 2 months worth on Instagram. No, the real influencer is living in the moment, in the knowing, in the epiphany of the moment, in that empowerment of being yourself in the world. And often you can feel alone, and you can feel melancholy. It's also what we have here in the individual circuitry, because when you're before everybody else, that can also feel like nobody understands you. People haven't catched up yet. Like Ashley was saying, it might take years. It might take even after you're dead for them to recognize your genius.
Yeah. And that's okay, because you're not even doing it for them or for the recognition or for the approval. You're doing it for you. And because anything else is just, it's not in integrity, and it doesn't feel right. The only channel my husband has is the 1 and the 8. And he often feels like his insights are not, like, his core wound is the 43. So he feels like when he's not heard, when he's not listened to, when his individual insights aren't accepted, he makes it mean something about him. Like we all do. Sometimes we take things very personally if it doesn't catch on, but it's not about anything catching on. Yeah. Did you want to say something?
I just realized about myself something with your husband, with what you're saying. No, I realized it before, and I know this is actually not for here, really, it's for the teaching. But the thing is, if you have an open ashton and an open head, and you have your throat connected to the G, and you know that the G is about your identity. So you might make it mean something about you. When you can't express something, or when somebody doesn't understand you, you make it about your identity. And that's really hard, right? Sometimes when something can't be manifested or expressed, you make it about you. And sometimes I'm wondering why I take things so at heart, or so hard, when other people seem to kind of be able to brush it off. And when I realized that, when I reread this and what Ra had said, I'm like, yeah, of course, I have the 31-7, which is that connection throat G. Ashley's husband have the 1-8, and it's about it really feels about who you are, about your identity. It impacts you that way. So it's powerful. And especially when you have an open head and ajna, then you can start to kind of like, make a story around it. And then it's the snowball effect. So we'll go in more to that in the teaching next week. But this is one of those like little funny thing to think about. Where is this throat connected? And where is there openness that can either act in the true self or the not self?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm going to show this really quick, and then we'll move on to the next archetype. But this is what I was talking about. I really loved this in the beginning, and I was like, oh my God, it's so girly and so bleh. And I'm not liking it anymore. And at the same time, the influencer doesn't freaking care about likes or mentions or anything. Like, it doesn't care. So look at this and see, this does not matter to the 8. This doesn't matter to the 8. Right?
And this is the fact actually that our archetypes never die. And everybody's asking us, when is the book coming? When is the book coming? And I don't know when the book is coming, because they're alive and they're changing every single year.
Yeah. We'll have to have a lot of like new editions.
A new edition of the book every year, maybe. Who wants to help us with a new edition every year?
Who wants to help us publish the book? That's what we're looking for. Is we need an editor. We need a publishing company. That's what we need. So Put it out into the ether.
Oh,
so
that is so cool. I know you guys can see because you're in the chat in the webinar, but Steve was just saying infinite edition. I like that. Like it's never, it's forever, it's eternal.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the A too. You know, the mutation and the evolution lies here in the individual circuitry, and that's why there is influence here in the eighth, because it's always on that edge of evolution where the mutation happens. This is the agent, the expression of that mutation as we are evolving.
I love it. Well, like any of the archetypes, if you're new with these, the website is, you can just go to the64doors.com and it'll take you to the landing page that has all of the numbers, all the archetypes. And we always have a description of it. This is always evolving and changing as well. As Bella, like I'm kind of like the one that's doing the graphic stuff. And I'm like, okay, this is outdated now. Bella is kind of in the words and the descriptions of them. And then she's like, I need to edit this. It's not where we were. Like, it's evolved. I've evolved. We've evolved. So it's constantly evolving. So we have that. And like we bring in the quarter, we bring in astrology, the I Ching. These are just like the general, like, okay, the I Ching, holding together water over earth. When we go into the archetype course, we actually have teachings for it. That was the transit call. We have teachings for it. We have workbooks for it. We have meditations for it. We have a description about the codon ring itself. And Kat Benson, she comes in and she brings in the Hebrew letters too, that she's associated with the codon rings. We go into the elemental trigrams. We have embodiment exercises and tons of things for you to dig into. So this is kind of a deep dive into the archetype. And as we are going every year, let me go back to this. We're building out an Akasha. So we have previous things from 2021 that we had lunar alchemy we did with John. We had a transit call last year. We did soul communication with Simone. All of these things are in here. So every year there will be an Akasha, or, the past year. So this year is always updated. This is the living wisdom, the stuff that's right now. And then if you wanted to go back to look at the other things, as we move forward, we're always updating. So that's what I love about the work we're doing, is it's constantly evolving and it's fresh. And I mean, that's Bella's got the one in her evolution sphere. So freshness is important. It's important for us to keep bringing in new stuff. So check out the website. There's tons of stuff on here as well. This is our free resource. And then the archetype course is paid. If you're in the inner circle, there's a discount code. So you're going to be able to get 20% off all of our courses. That includes the archetype courses. And we have a bunch of throat gates coming up, and we're going to have transit calls for those. So if you want to buy any of the upcoming ones, then you'll be able to be included on the live stuff that we have going on, which is really cool. Okay. You want to go into the next archetype?
Yes. So let's go from individual to tribal. Because first is the individual, and then the individuals come together and they mate and they have children and they need to support each other and they need to, I do this for you and you do this for me. So then we come to the tribal circuitry. So who do we have there? Who are we choosing to represent today from the tribal?
You know who I want to choose.
Say it out loud.
Say it out loud. I want to bring in Goodwill. I like calling it the hub tree because that's kind of how I see it. Because when you feel into tribal circuitry, the tribe, there's an evolution of this tribal energy that's coming. Because before, it's like the king and queen, there's always a leader, it's hierarchical, right? Humans create their own rules of how we want to function. And sometimes it's based on the shadow or the wounding. And sometimes it's based on, climbing up a ladder, getting to the top of something, or being in charge or ruling over someone. It's like pride and ego. So the 45 is connected to the 21. So the energy that is coming up to the throat comes from the ego hub. This can be about competition. This can have this energy of pride. This can have this energy of me, the little me, the little I. And the 45 can be dominating, right? Because in the gene key frequencies, it moves from dominance to communion through the pathway of synergy. But when you're in dominance, there's someone ruling over you. The 45 has the resources, has the land, has the things. It's ruling over something. It's part of the cross of rulership, right? It's part of the cross of rulership. So it is here to be in charge of something, and other people can sense that energy. And let me tell you what happens sometimes. The 45, if you have the goodwill archetype within you and the shadows playing out, we have people that can sense your power, that can sense your authority, that can sense that in you. And if you do not recognize it in yourself, guess what other people are going to do? They're going to try to squash you. They're going to try to push you down because they're afraid of you dominating them, because there is this stuff in our bloodline, in our lineage that says rulers are not altruistic. Rulers do not operate in goodwill. We have experienced bad rulership. We've experienced like dictators, right? And so when we sense that energy in another, and I've had conversations with manifestors about this too. Me and Brandy Brandy Jordan, we've had conversations about manifestor energy and how it can be really off-putting because it's very powerful. And the manifestors of the past ended up being the rulers. And then we have the slaves. And so there's this dynamic that goes between the ones below the manifestor. And you sense the anger, and your cells remember the anger. And you're like, whoa, my God, freaking out. I'm pissing off a manifestor. What do I need to do? You know, we're frenetically trying to figure out how to please them, or we're running away from them, or we have the people that are rebelling against them. And goodwill, if we look at nature and we look at how nature, Mother Nature, works and operates, you can look at, this is a picture of an aspen grove, and Allison Adams, is that your last name? Allison Adams created this. And aspen groves, and along with other tree species, some tree species are one organism. Within that one organism, we have a hub tree, and that's the mother tree. The hub tree is bigger, it carries more resources, and it just like the 45 has the resources, it has the land, it has the things. The 21 is the manager of those things. The 21 and the 45 work together, right? So we have the 45 that has all these things, the hub tree. It works with the mycelium, the mitochondrial network underneath the ground, the fungi network under the ground that connects it to all the other trees. What does that hub tree do? That hub tree shares the resources altruistically with the fungi, says, you need this. What I need from you is I need communication. I need to know what's happening with my fractal. I have to know what's happening with my family. Bella and I did a transit call on the 45 last year, and I painted this, and Bella said, tribal is our nature, and we all have a family. This is the hub tree. This is our fractal. We are connected to our people. And when you are not operating in dominance, when you are in synergy, and you can tune into and be like, what does this person need from me? What is a symbiotic, mutually beneficial exchange? Because you're not going to give of your resources because someone's in the victim and they're like, give me, I'm struggling. You teach a man to fish. You don't give them the fish because then they always need you, and it creates codependency. But there needs to be flow and synergy between the fractal. And some people are the hub trees. Some people have the resources. Some people are sharing them. And it's up to you to decide what kind of energy you are going to be putting out into the world. You're going to dominate. And is it going to be, it's part of the codon ring of prosperity. The 16 and the 45 are together. Prosperity for you or prosperity for all? I'm really big on the hub tree. So I think I'm good. Anything that you want to add or say? Nothing else is coming out of my throat chakra, my throat hub.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, here, I think it's important to just highlight, because we have the community or the tribe here, the king or the queen, the ruler, which is the 45, is going to care about those people. So it's going to care about the people that is like under his dominion, under his rulership, under his possession in a way. And these are the people are going to get of the resources. So somehow still a tree that is standing in the Amazon forest, it can't care about the tree here in Sweden, really. You know, it's going to only reach that far. So to know that in the tribal circuitry, we care about the people we can touch. Support is the keynote here. If empowerment was the keynote in the individual circuitry, here in the tribal circuitry, it's support. So the people that are sitting around our table, that we are sharing food with, that we are sleeping in the same bed with, that we have children with, that we're educating and nurturing, these are the people that are part of the tribe. And then a little bit on a higher level, it could be a community where we need to work for the community. We might even need to pay something, because there are some things in the community we need together to pay for. So like kind of taxes would be in a very basic sense, it would be we give back, you know. It is about the giving and the taking. And as long as we do that, we're safe. As long as we do that, the 45 is going to say, okay, you're part of this tribe, of this community, you're giving yours to it, so I'm going to make sure that you're safe, and that I distribute the resources so that you also can sleep and eat and be covered. And that is how we started. That's the bedrock of human society, we could say. So that's the level that we're looking at. So all the gates that are in that tribal circuitry are going to function in a similar way, where support is the keynote. And we have those principles. Okay, I'm doing this, and I trust that you're going to do this, because if both of us are giving something, it's going to work. We're going to survive. It's going to be beautiful. That's the way, that the reasoning. I don't have any defined circuitry. Like I don't have any channel in my design that is tribal. I have some tribal gates, but I have nothing that connects. So for me, this is like something that kind of gives me anxiety a little bit, because I feel like I have a lot of individual, I have a lot of collective, but this kind of sticky thing of like, I need to do this. No. And also I don't have any children, at least not yet. So there's also something where, for me, the tribal is something that feels heavy on me, and that I don't really need, like I don't need too close on me.
Yeah.
I do have to say though, I am attracted to it. I have a lot of people in my life that have those crosses, either 36-6 together with the 26 and the 45, which are the programming partners, or the 64-63 together with the 45 and the 26. So those are some of the crosses that you're going to find, and they have a leadership to them, and that leadership to me is sexy. It's not the kind of leadership, and we're going to go into the collective and kind of another leadership gate soon, but for me, it's a sexy leadership. And I love to be with the person. I love to be with the 45 for sure, but it's not the way that I function in the world. It's not the way that I really see the world and society or individuals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we can look at circuitry as evolution as well. We have the individual, and then it moves to the tribal, then it moves to the collective, but we need each of them, because you need to be empowered as an individual. We need support in the tribe, right? And we have, like, within the circuitry too, like we have in the tribal circuitry, there's ego circuit and there's defense circuit. And you're going to feel, once you look and see like what is related within this circuit, you're going to see how they work together to achieve that support in the tribe. Like, what does the tribe need? How do we deliver that? How do we nourish the tribe? What are the rules of the tribe? Like, all of this stuff starts out, because at an individual level, you're learning and discerning, who am I? What are my values? What are my rules? And then you move out when you're starting to let more people in, because this is where we're at until we feel safe within ourselves. And we're like, okay, let me interact with the world. I'm ready to start a family. I'm ready to like have a partner and then have children. And then when you do, it's about dancing and synergizing together and deciding the rules together. There's no hierarchy where it's like me, mine, right? And so now we're learning, what is it like to be in synergy together, and to know this is what this person needs. This is what I need. How can we come together, and how can we both coexist? And where before it was like people grouped and gathered together with similar values and similar things that they agreed on. But when we're looking at such diversity here, are you going to just segregate yourself to just the people you can get along with? No, we are going to let other people in. We're going to let people in. The 45.6, that the hub tree, the goodwill, it brings people into the tribe. The 6 line is like, hi, we're all family, come in. It may freak out the other people in the tribe, be like, why are you bringing in this stranger? We need to diversify, because when you stay stuck in a little box forever, you don't evolve, you don't grow. It's the
That's the same with the 59. That is also part of that. It's the defense circuit, but it's also like, oh, let's just have a one night stand. This can be a really cool combination of genes. So you need new blood in the tribe. Otherwise, the genes are not going to be strong anymore. And the same thing when we're looking at some of the other things, they are going to bring others in. We need that to be strong to support the survival of the tribe. So,
I like it. Well, I feel closure, completion with the tribal circuitry. Did you want to move on to the next archetype?
Yes, so let's move into another leadership archetype, and that would be the 31. So the 31 is collective leadership. So it's not the king over the kingdom that is giving out the resources and sitting there in his throne and everybody knows it's the king. No, the 31 is very different in that sense. It's actually going to be a reluctant leader many times. It's more like a facilitator than a leader. It's connected with a 7, and the 7 typically we call it a facilitator in human design. The 31 is the voice of that collective leadership. So when it's chosen by the people, by the collective, it says, okay, I can lead. And it has that partnership with the 7 that is a forward-oriented leadership. Everything in the collective circuitry is for a better future. It is learning from the past, either in a logical way, which we have here in the 7 and the 31, or from experience, which is more on the other side of the body graph, which is the sensing circuitry. We had an experience, we sensed something, we couldn't make sense of it in the chaos of the moment, but then we realized if it worked or if it didn't work, and then based on that experience, we can move forward in a sense that is better. But here we are in a more logical part of the chart that has to do as well with the 18 and the 58. That has to do with working on what's being spoiled. The 31 can see what didn't work and say, okay, these are logical steps that we need to do as a collective in order to walk towards the future. And it's influential in that sense. So the 8 can be influential in the sense that it's inspiring and empowered, and everybody's like, oh my God, it's an agent for creativity. It's so magnetic. But with the 31, it's much more in a logical way. Okay, here there is a voice that speaks in a way that makes sense, that is promising us all that if we do it together, it's going to be better. What we are going to be able to walk forward. And then we trust it. It has that a trust that is underpinned by something that we can make sense of. And that's how the logical circuitry works. It looks at the past, it has an idea for how to move forward, and it needs to have the underpinning of the support of the collective, the whole collective. And it doesn't just care about some, it cares about humanity. And this is where I have had friction with that 45 quite a lot, because I feel like, wait, you're speaking about this country or this community or just this part of the world, but what about humanity? And I have the 31 in a 6th line. So of course the 6th line is the bridge even between humanity and beyond humanity. So for me, it always have to be on that scale, and everything less than that. Of course, I recognize the individual spark, but when it comes to us, it has to be the whole we and the whole us. And that is something that the 31 cares about, for sure.
Yeah. It's funny, Bella, because you have the 31, and anytime that I hear you, you have a certain tonality and intonation that you speak when your 31 is coming out. It's like kind of like not matter of fact, but it's like you're like telling people, this is the way that it is, and this is how you're going to look at it. And like you're into, like, I can tell whenever the 31 is coming through, because it comes out of your throat, and you have this very set pattern of the way that you talk. And it's like you're telling people, like, I need you to understand this. I'm going to teach you about this because you don't know about this. It's so funny. And that's the leadership. That's the let me let me bring you forward this way. Come over to this way. You guys are all going to notice that in Bella when she starts to like, that's the leadership coming out of her throat and it's defined. So, and you have the whole channel. Mm-hmm. So it's very strong in Bella. She's guiding people with the 7 towards that future direction for the, what is it? Collective, for the collective, because it's collective Circuitry and it's very logical. So she's thinking about things and she's like, I don't know why you think that it's going to be this way, because it is this way. And this is what makes sense. You need to make sure that it's making sense. She gets like that. And it's so funny.
I can tell you, I end up in bed with people that have the 45 in the attraction sphere. And I'm like, why am I even here? 31, 45.
It doesn't make sense.
Together.
You must be doing it for the collective. or because Bella also has individual circuitry, she's just like deaf to the out, like deaf, and it's like, oh, I didn't listen. I was taken over. I don't even know. It's funny. It's funny the way these inner archetypes work, because
but that's the thing. I have the 28 as my pearl. I take personal risk because that's part of my celebration. So for 28.3 is my pearl. So that's my Jupiter, my law, how I expand. I'm going to take the risk of going with that king and have that experience for myself. But I wouldn't lead the collective into coming into bed with us. Like, this is funny, but that's the way it is. Like, it's different. It's different, the individual risk that I can take with the objective perspective that I can have of where we need to go. So I think that's the best way to actually explain.
And can you imagine too, like feel into this, like following someone with collective leadership. And let's just say that it's a 31.456, because that is going to be fixated on the other. The first line, second line, third line is personal. So say that we have a 31.5. They're the leader, right? They are leading us and leading the collective, and they have a lot of collective circuitry, right? You can trust to follow them. For example, if you have someone that has a lot of individual circuitry and maybe a personal profile, maybe they're 1-3, and you feel like I need to follow them because you can't sense your own individual trajectory, your own individual guidance, you're going to follow them, but they are leading themselves for themselves. And so it may or may not work out for you. And you're going to sense that who's for them, who's for you, who's for the collective. You're going to sense the transpersonal people. You're going to sense the personal people. And we are a combination of all the circuitries, right? But sometimes when you look at your body graph and you see, oh, I have more collective circuitry. Oh, I have more individual circuitry. That's kind of more of the flavor that's coming out with you, especially if you have a channel that is tribal, individual, collective. Like Bella's 31.7, collective. How many channels do you have, Bella? 3. And are they, you have an individual, you have a collective, and then what's your other?
I have 2 individual. One is normal individual, 2838. And then the other is hyper individual, because it's part of the integration channels, which is 3457. And then I have the collective one, which is the 31.7.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you can go onto the genetic matrix website, and it shows you, I think maybe in the pro version, it'll show you what your balance is. Like, what do you have more of? And it shows this really cool graph, and that's who you are. So it's just beautiful. I mean, we don't even need to know all this human design and gene key astrology stuff. We learn it so that we can give ourselves permission to just be ourselves. And soon those systems fall away. But in the moment that you're drawn here because there's part of you are still yet to know. And this gives you that introduction to that part of you that is wanting you to commune with it, that is wanting integration. Because sometimes we fragment. Maybe you have the 8th gene key in your core wound, and it has taken a long time for you to embrace your individual style and uniqueness, because everybody told you that you were weird or that your style was different. And it's like, why are you wearing that? Or why did you say it that way? Or that's a weird thing to do. Great. Once you can get over the shame of what you allowed people to make you feel, you get liberated into your own individual style, your uniqueness, and you get to share that with the world, and people get to be inspired by you. But when we're living a half life because we're hiding for fear of being persecuted, for being shamed, for being different, then you're going to die without your fullest expression. And here in the Throat Hub, it is about self-expression. So are you being the champion of your own message and your own truth? Or are you being the champion of somebody else's message and truth because you're so scared of putting your own individual ideas out there? Are you so scared of whatever it is? What's the fear here?
And I want to go back to the circuitry thing and a little bit when it comes to the Gene Key community. I know a lot of people that read the Gene Keys and are fascinated by them, as all of us are. And when you read a Gene Key and you know about the circuitry, you're going to be like, that makes so much sense when Richard writes about it because his background is in human design. What I do hear a lot is that somebody that has been in the Gene Keys for a while are telling somebody else about a Gene Key. But there is something that kind of feels like a guitar that is playing weird, because if you don't know what an archetype or a Gene Key care about, what part of what circuitry it's part of, it's so easy to remember a little bit wrong and kind of say, oh, this gate is so much like this, and then you're like, no, that doesn't make any sense at all, because it's not it's inspiring in a different way because it's individual. Or so for me, it's easy to kind of slightly be off with the Gene Keys when you don't know the circuitry. And even in the circuitry, like Ashley was saying, for example, in the tribal, we have the ego and the defense circuit. They are going to be different. In the collective, we have the sensing, which is all about experiencing and wisdom, and we have logic. So in circuitry, you kind of don't misinterpret the Gene Keys anymore. You know what they care about. And this is the thing. When you know what a person cares about, it's impossible to kind of misunderstand them. And that's what we are doing with the archetypes. I feel that is important. Yeah, that feels super important.
Yeah. And over, I mean, Bella is a champion of clarity, of correctness. She wants to make, she's consumed all of this information, right? And she's going to make sure that it's in integrity. Integrity is a part of my design too. I have 18.1. I'm here discovering what integrity is about because I have the first line, right? I'm in the beginning of that. But I have the 4 and the 47. Both of them are taking these ideas and I'm wanting to understand it. I'm wanting to see what puzzle pieces fit together. I'm looking for patterns. That's how when I fill my open head and ajna with something, that is the gate. That are the gates that come alive for me. And it has been my conscious moon is the 4, which is the philosopher. And we'll get into that next month because we're going to be going into the ajna. But it's important for me to be understood and for me to understand the other. I have a 4.2. So I've been communing with these archetypes to understand them more and more and more and more. And each transit, I connect with them again and I understand them more and more and more. And I understand them in me and I understand them in others. So my whole thing is, can I understand them? Because what's the shadow frequency of the 4? Intolerance. When you don't understand someone, yeah, you're going to be intolerant of them because you're going to know what you like. You're going to know what you believe, but it's hard for you to put yourself in someone else's shoes. And when they wrong you, you can't forgive them because you don't understand why they're doing it. But once you have understanding, of course, forgiveness comes. So, Andrea, that's your conscious moon too. We both want to understand. Are you a second line?
One more time, if you're write to everyone in the chat so that everybody can see. And we have some people that even ask what circuitry is. Ashley, do you have that amazing slide where we can just show what circuitry is? And we can just look at it from a throat gate perspective. And then I know we kind of want to wrap up.
The PDF? The PDF?
Yeah, the one that has the one that you did, the kind of color codes, the circuitry.
Oh yeah, let's do that.
And if you have questions, we might have time with 3. I think there's one in the Q&A already, but if there's anything, you can put it. So we'll get to a few of them and we'll screenshot the questions we don't get to. And if you are part of the intensive next week, we'll make sure that we bring them to the intensive. But let's look at the circuitry because it seems like I didn't decide, but my defined throat wanted everything to be about circuitry today.
That's okay. This is circuitry. And I want you to just think about the body graph as circuits. It's like energy. How does your energy move? So Bella, what do you want to What would you like to
Yeah,
go
so the
into?
circuitry, like when we look at the body graph, we see how energy moves. And like I was saying, there are different themes in different places in this movement. And we are calling them hubs in Unlock Your Design. And the hubs are going to be connected, and there's going to be a quality of the energy that flows between different centers. So what Ash has done here is to color code the circuitry, where we have the three main circuitry definitions. It's individual, like we were speaking about with the 8, tribal, like we were speaking about with the 45, and collective, like we were speaking about with the 31. That's the like the headlines, we could say. And then in them there are like undertitles, what we could say, where we can go into the knowing, the integration that I mentioned, the defense and the ego we mentioned. But this is important, because when you know, you can see, for example, like when I look at this, what stands out to me is the yellow, and this happened to be that individual circuitry, the knowing circuitry. And I said before, knowing and empowerment. Everywhere you see yellow in this body graph, you're going to know that these archetypes that are there, they are going to care about being empowered. And how are they empowered? By that spontaneous knowing that's just there, whether it's the 61 that gets the inspiration in through the head, or it is the 2 that just knows where to go through that moving in space from the G. And then you can look at, for example, we could take any gate and see what they care about. You can see it's brown actually there in the smile. We call it the sacral smile. So between the sacral and the emotional on one side, and the sacral and the splenic on the other side, this is on the emotional side is where we mate. There's emotion and sexual energy. So we're going to mate, we're going to make babies. And then on the other side, where we have the spleen, so that's kind of the instinct of how to survive. And we have the sacral, which is the energy on how to survive. There, we're going to nurture and educate our children. That's what the gates, if you have the 59, the 6, the 27, and the 50, especially if you have a whole channel, that is part of what you're going to care about, what you consistently are going to kind of focus on. And if you have those gates and you don't do that, you can ask yourself, are you pushing it away? Why don't you want to focus on it? Because there is not self in what's defined in you and in what's open. It's wrong to think that the not self only exists in the openness. The openness can be a curse and a blessing. The fixedness can be a curse and a blessing. That's why a lot why we bring in the gene keys is that whether something is defined or undefined, you have the whole frequency band: shadow, gift, and city. Low frequency, high frequency.
Mm-hmm. It's so good. And you can see we're all wanting to be expressed. Expression is us in action, being ourselves. So all of this circuitry is moving to the throat. So I started to talk like you because I was starting to explain something very logical. I'm going to bring in your voice, Bella. Okay. I just started to notice I was going to talk like Bella. Open throat. Okay. So we're bringing... So for example, like you can look at your body graph and you can see how do things get to the throat. For example, I don't have any connections to the throat, but one of the ways I do connect to the throat is through the 35. But I'm going to have to go a roundabout way to get there when I'm connected to someone with the 35, or if I'm with somebody that because that's going to bring it to my throat. It's going to bring the energy to my throat. Whenever I connect with somebody that has the 35, I'm bringing emotional energy to the throat because I have the 36. So I get to talk about my emotions. So see how this energy is coming to the throat. And it can also come down from the head and the ajna as well, like bringing that inspiration, those ideas, the way that you're thinking down to the throat. So there's a lot down here, right? We're bringing a lot from the bottom of the body graph to the throat. And here we have ideas and inspiration and the way that we think about things, conceptualization, bringing it to the throat. And come back to your body, come back to yourself. Come back to your groundedness and bring what's down here up here. Because a lot of people forget about this because the trend is to think a lot, is to know a lot, is to express your knowing. But can you express your being? Can you express yourself? Can you express your emotions? Do you hide from your emotions? Let's bring it all to the throat and not just be have a preference to only bring what we know and what is valuable, because the world tends to say that thoughts, ideas, these things are what are valuable, but there's so much more that is valuable that needs to be expressed. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. And 11 gates are going to the throat. So everything goes there, we could say. It is about communication, it is about manifestation. So I know that every time we do something that has to do with business, like business by design, we have a lot of people. But even here, we are speaking about manifestation because, like Ashley said, it needs to arrive to the throat, and from there it can be expressed in the world, and from there it can be valued. If it doesn't arrive to the throat, not so much is happening. And also, as you know, if you are a manifester or a type, you need to have a motor directly connected to the throat. Otherwise, you aren't a manifester. So this is the center of metamorphosis and manifestation. There are a lot of different voices in the throat. Depending on what you have defined, that is going to be a voice that is either consistent in you or not consistent, depending on if that hanging gate connects to something else, and if your throat is defined or not. So all this, we're going to go into it a little bit deeper, of course. And next week we're going to do chart readings. I think we decided that the two first people that joined today into the inner circle, if we have people joining, we are going to look at your charts for like 10-15 minutes, and we're going to do 2 charts from the people that are already in the inner circle. That's one of the days. And then we have an embodiment call, because awareness and embodiment go hand in hand. And we also have a teaching that usually is like 1 to 1.5 hours. And we always record even more in the background that we haven't really decided what we're going to do with. But there is opportunity for being part of the teaching call and for all the questions to be discussed as well. Is there anything more with the intensive that I'm forgetting, Ashley?
No, and we mentioned it earlier on too. So the first 2 people that are watching this live, we'll know who the first 2 people are, but you'll get a chart reading that we'll do next week. And then we'll pick 2 people that are already in the inner circle. So I've already put the link on Facebook, but for those of you that are in the Zoom room, please stay tuned because we have something special for you. And if you have any questions, we can get to that on the back end. And thank you so much for those of you joining us from Facebook and YouTube. It was fun. And we'll see those of you that are inside the Zoom container